3. No proposer. Formally proposed. Thank you. Motion 125 in the name of the Uachtaráid My Colin branch, Galway West.
Fellow delegates, a number of our members have come into contact with asylum seekers over the last few years. And as we've learnt more about their actual living conditions, the veil of common misperceptions has been lifted to reveal a really stark reality. NGOs such as the Irish Refugee Council, the Free Legal Advice Centres or FLAC, Amnesty International and many others are reporting what we have seen for ourselves, that the system is failing. According to the 1951 Geneva Convention and the Refugee Act passed in Ireland in 1996, asylum seekers are legally entitled to enter and remain in Ireland for as long as is required for their claims to be processed. And during that time, each person is entitled to be treated with respect and should be able to live in dignity. These are the state's obligations. The system of direct provision has been in place for a decade and disperses asylum seekers around the country in accommodation centres where they receive shelter and full board. They cannot work and they have limited opportunities for study. 4 to 6 people share a standard-sized room. They suffer overcrowding, lack of privacy, poor food and inadequate facilities. They're under constant surveillance and they must sign in daily. Guests are not allowed into their rooms. They themselves describe the centres as open prisons. They live in them for between 3 and 9 years. They receive the direct provision allowance of €19.60 per week per adult and €9.10 per child, an amount so small that in May 2000, community welfare officers considered striking in protest. Contrast this with the large profits made by the private operators contracted to run the service by the RIA, the government department responsible. As well as condemning asylum seekers to a life of poverty, surely this system does not represent the most efficient way to spend public money. Amnesty finds that direct provision is causing trauma to an already vulnerable group, many of whom have suffered torture, family separation, rapes, beatings. The system doesn't address their varied needs because it treats them all in the same way. Depression, anxiety, suicide attempts are much more common than in the general population. They're physically and financially excluded from the local community. They live apart. They can't afford to use the transport, to engage in social activities, and they can't work. They lose their self-esteem, and longer term, they become institutionalized and de-skilled. They suffer insecurity around the asylum process, which FLAC defines or finds is neither fair, nor fast, nor effective, and they fear deportation. And they're afraid to speak out because they think it might prejudice their claim. In 2005, the UN expressed serious concerns with direct provision, and the government will be called to report progress next year. To sum up, the existing system is destroying hope and destroying lives. We've created an underclass in our society, isolated and afraid to speak out. The Irish state could be found guilty of breaching international law. We must create a more humane system to fulfil our responsibilities. I urge you to support this motion and abolish direct provision. Thank you.